Hello folks, it's Joshua Watts with Joshua Watts Leather Company. Today, this is part 2 of a how-to series on how to, work with leather. Today's lesson is going to involve how to carve the leather and all that it entails, and some little tips and tricks along the way. Let's get started. As you can tell from my last video, the work surface is a little different. This is a piece of marble. You need a nice hard surface underneath your leather to work on it, to carve it and to tool it. Here's the project that we started with on the last video, and we're going to go ahead and get started on what to do here. First thing is a pro tip. I'm going to turn it completely over, and then I'm going to take some blue painter's tape, and I'm going to tape the bottom of this. Now the reason I'm doing this is when you carve and tool leather, it likes to start to cup. Almost like a metal worker when they're beating on a piece of metal, how it'll start to bend up and cup. What this will do, and it's the cheapest method of, and the quickest, is stop that from happening. You may have a little bit of cupping, maybe a little bit of stretching, but it won't be nearly as bad as it would be if you didn't do this. There's another method of using rubber cement that you can get at almost any leather supply store, that you can paint onto the back of it and then stick it to your marble, but then you won't be able to rotate your piece around. The next step I like to do is just take either a blade or some scissors and just cut the excess leather off. And I'm going to quickly do that now. The blade that I'm using to cut this is a hobby blade invented by a company called Slice. They make ceramic blades that are infused with glass. They don't cut skin. Your skin. They won't cut your skin. They can cut leather, and in some cases with their utility blades, I actually use them to cut leather. But they're a safe blade, and they're way less forgiving than a metal blade that won't last as long. These blades last a whole lot longer. So now that I got that cut off, I can just peel the excess off and reveal only our leather with the tape on the back. Okay, this next segment here, we're going to be working with a couple of different tools here. Let me remove their safety caps. These are called swivel knives. These are used to carve the designs into leather. As you can notice, the blades on these two different swivel knives are completely different. This blade here is a metal blade, and it's also angled. It is called a filigree blade. It is very useful for making very intricate, small turns and cuts. This larger one, this is my go-to. I will use this almost exclusively all the time unless I have tiny, tiny, tiny little things I have to do. This blade has a blade from Slice, just like the hobby blade. The blade on this knife is also ceramic, with glass infused into the ceramics, which make it very, very tough. Steel blades work just fine too. I just prefer this one. I prefer the feel and the slide of how this blade feels, and I prefer the way that it cuts. This here is my leather strop. I have red jeweler's rouge on it. The reason that we need to strop this, but it just polishes the edge of the blade, which keeps the blade sharp. The way you do this is hold the swivel knife at a 45-degree angle and then stroke it in the same direction. Turn it over and do the same number of swipes that you did on the other side. Then what you need to do is flip your strop over, or use a clean piece of leather, clean-ish anyway, and do the same thing, the same number of strokes for both sides. This will remove any excess jeweler's rouge and help polish the blade. Keep your strop nearby because you will need it from time to time throughout your project. Always keep your blade stropped. So here we have our leather, and it is still cased from when we traced our design onto it. Now all we need to do is hold our blade at a 45-degree angle and begin our cuts.
There's one done.
As you can see, it is pretty easy to make all of these kinds of cuts here. Just use a little bit of downward force, let the tool do most of the work, and when you need to turn, slowly and carefully swivel the blade around. From this point on, I will put the video in time-lapse mode so you can watch me carve this. And there you can see that we have carved our design now into our piece of leather. Let me bring it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see it. The reason that we carved the design into the leather is in the next video we're going to be using tools like this to get into the crack of where we carved and hammering it down to give it that 3D look that we all know and love about leather. So stay tuned. Please hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell icon if you want to be notified about future videos, especially in this series.